Nobody's awake yet, huh? Um, I'm not awake. I was on the red eye. I got like an hour and a half of sleep. So if I fall asleep in the next half hour, just somebody nudge me a little bit, okay, if you could. Klaus was saying, there's so much going on here. That's one of the joys about being here is every week I hear something that somebody's doing, and I'm just like, oh, man, I didn't think that was even possible. And the other fascinating thing that happens here is somebody over here will do something interesting, and somebody over here will say, wow, actually that solves a problem I've got. Let's work together on that. And so this interdisciplinary nature of things works really strongly too. Klaus mentioned that I'm a principal research scientist at Sloan. I was also a faculty director at Workplace Learning in our Office of Digital Learning. And what we're doing is we're now, if this research is about digital transformation, what I'm trying to do now is say, we got an awful lot of online and hybrid and simulation type learning. If we were to completely reinvent the process of workforce learning, so every individual anywhere in the world could own their career progression and be able to put the things together in the right order with the right advice, that's what I'm trying to do right now. So we'll talk about digital transformation of organizations, but if you want to talk about digital transformation of careers and learning and helping to skill your workers, we can definitely talk about that because that's my new project. Okay? So this one, leading digital transformation, we've been studying this since before it was a thing. Digital transformation is the word that everybody uses, and unfortunately it's being used wrong. And so I want to tell you how to use it right. And I also want to tell you how to do this in your organization to really lead the change rather than let the changes drive you. So at MIT and other places, digital acceleration is, innovation is accelerating. You've heard Moore's Law, right? You must have heard that 4 times yesterday. And so just to give you an idea how fast it's going, this is just the last couple of years of AI that corresponds to jobs. Number one, an algorithm summarizes text surprisingly well. Surprisingly well is one of those weird words in the media when it comes to technology. The fact that it can do it at all is surprising, but there's always a wonder, how good is it? Well, over here, this was now January 2018, so about a year and a half ago. It's as good as the average high schooler in the US. Well, that's pretty darn good for a computer, right? What else? But then what does that mean for jobs? Well, who does a lot of reading text? How about lawyers? And computers beat top lawyers at their own game. This was about a month after that announcement. Now, to be fair, this is reading non-disclosure forms. And, reading non-disclosure forms is not the best job in the world. After about 1, I fall asleep. After about 4 or 5, I'm sure the best lawyers fall asleep. They tested 25, so probably the computer kept going after the lawyers fell asleep. But they did beat the lawyers, right? And the thing is, the computers just don't get tired. They don't miss things that they're not supposed to miss, where people do that all the time. Well, then, where else can we go? Here's another one. Computers are good at reading radiology. This is the first thing I've seen where the computers read the radiology and make a diagnosis without a doctor in the middle of it. Now, this is a special kind of doctor, the doctors of optometry, and there are all kinds of reasons why they might be moved out before the other doctors are. But that's very interesting when the computers can diagnose for you. But then here's another thing that's going on. Most jobs are not going to go away. They're going to be changed. Some of the tasks will be taken out. These jobs will be reshuffled. There will be a lot of places where computers do what people don't want to do, and people will be able to do better jobs. For example, these new robots in Walmart, they scan the entire Walmart looking for when the shelves are open and need to be replenished. People used to need to do that a few times a day. Walmart is a very big store. The robots just do it all day. They're happy to do that. And the people can do better stuff. And then here, this is augmenting. We can smell your breath and tell you whether you got 17 diseases. Now, the doctor will do a bunch of other things before they diagnose you, but this is augmenting. This is not replacing. I did look around, though, and trying to find the job that no computer will ever replace. And it's hard to say will ever, but there's something computers are really bad at right now. They don't write very great poetry. So if you're a poet, you're in pretty good shape, at least for now. The problem is if you're a poet, you're not making a living at it anyway, so you need a different job, right? So why do I say this? Because what you heard yesterday, what you're going to hear today, what you're going to hear in the media all the time is Moore's Law. Things are moving really quickly in technology, and that's what's driving digital transformation. But I don't think that's all that's driving digital transformation. So this just got published on Monday. If you got Moore's Law, I'm going to give you George's Law. Okay? And George's Law is very simple. Technology changes quickly, but organizations change much more slowly. And what that means then is when we talk about digital transformation, if we're paying attention to the digital, we're paying attention to the wrong part. The transformation is what matters, not the digital. And what that means also is this is not a technology problem, it's a leadership problem. And we forget that sometimes. I'm not going to let you forget that for the next half hour, but I want you to really keep that in mind. This is a leadership challenge. You need to re-envision your company and drive this through your company, not just add new technology to it. Okay? So we took a look at 400 companies and interviewed 150 people in 50 companies, surveyed another 400 to understand what do the digital masters do better. These are big incumbent companies. This is not the Googles and the Apples and the Amazons. I know those companies, but these are the big, boring companies that run the economy. And we asked, what do the digital masters do better? They do two things better than the other firms. Number one, they drive digital into their company, but you don't see mobile and AI up there. You see a transformed customer experience, a transformed operational processes, because that's the answer. If you haven't transformed the way you work, that technology hasn't done anything for you yet. On the other hand, you see leadership capability. They're better than other companies at envisioning and driving change over and over and over again. Okay? So Klaus said I'm a management professor, so if you get a management professor, they gave you two things, what's the next picture look like? It has to look like that, right? And so you want to be at the top, right? You don't want to be at the bottom left. And any management professor worth his salt will spend time on the off diagonals, okay? So let's talk about that. The company is doing a lot of digital, but not a lot of leadership. That top left there, do we have a pointer here? Okay, we don't. Anyway, the top left there, lots of digital, not very much leadership. What we tend to see here is an awful lot of digital stuff, not necessarily connected the way it ought to be. So think about the great engineering company that had 4 collaboration platforms, and those platforms couldn't collaborate, right? That's the kind of idea. Another company, 3 mobile marketing experiments. When all 3 of them worked, which never happens, they kept all 3 running. 3 separate technology stacks, 3 sets of vendors, 3 different marketing campaigns, same customer base. They're wasting money, they're annoying their customers, right? So these companies, we call them fashionistas. And why do we call that? Because they're all beautiful and digital, all on the outside. There's just nothing going on up here, right? What's the other side? The conservatives, they're the ones being too careful. They're the ones that would say, wow, this digital stuff, George, it just sounds like that .com stuff. And I lost a lot of money in that .com stuff. And I said, that's 15 years ago. Do you know how many doublings of Moore's Law that is? Oh yeah, well we're just not going to do that. I even had people say that Y2K, I spent so much money on Y2K, right? So, these are people who they don't want to lose money, and as a result, they can't innovate. So they're getting the business cases perfect, but if it's not a clear business case, they won't do it. They're going to make sure everything's well standardized. That means they can't try anything new either, right? And so what they do is they don't get in trouble, but they also don't innovate very well. So if we were to turn the page and think about what does this mean, well, the next step is some financials, because I'm at a business school. We got to run financials, right? That's how it works. So we compared companies in different quadrants to other billion-dollar companies in their same industry on average. So retailers against retailers, banks against banks. And what we find is the 2 dimensions are associated with 2 different kinds of performance. The more digital you are, the better you drive revenue through your capacity. 6 to 9% better revenue per employee, fixed asset turnover. And it makes sense. The more digital you are, the less physical you need to drive an equivalent amount of revenue. And so that makes sense. It doesn't say anything about profit. What do we look at the leadership? The companies that are better at leading are 9 to 26% better than their competitors in the same industry on EBIT margin and net profit margin. They are more profitable than their peers. Doesn't say anything about revenue. The masters, you could see it, 9% more revenue, 26% more profit. That's where you want to be. The interesting thing is, though, if the fashionistas are all about innovating and being digital, yeah, they're innovating, they're digital, they're getting more customer attention, and they're driving more revenue, but they're doing it, you see, at a lower profit margin than their competitors. And the conservatives, on the other hand, they're not losing money. In fact, they're more profitable than their peers, but they're driving less revenue through their capacity. If you're not innovating and you're falling behind on revenue, how long is that profit going to stay there? So we see that you get what you ask for, and if you're not asking for both, you're going to not get the results that you want to get. Okay? By the 26% number, the way to think about it is if you're in an industry with a 10% profit margin, and these are billion-dollar companies, the masters are running around 12.5. So that extra 2.5% is a lot of money on a billion-dollar company. Okay? I can't tell you which way the causality goes. I wouldn't dare to tell you because we don't know. But I will say, even if the causality is reversed, even if it's not the masters are more profitable, but rather the most profitable companies in every industry do it this way, that still sounds like best practice, right? So whether digital puts you there, or whether the way these best companies manage, they also manage digital that way, either way, you should do digital this way. Okay? So I was looking around for companies to be really good examples, and the best example I could find was a company I had never heard of. Anybody hear of Asian Paints? Did you grow up in India? If you grew up in India, you know this company. If you didn't grow in India, nobody knows this company unless they listen to me telling this story. It's a really good company. And it also was the example I was trying to find of the most boring industry in the world doing exciting things, right? And so I'm going to just do this quickly, but Asian Paints was selling and making paint 13 different ways in 13 different regions. Why is that? Because if you create 2 units doing the same thing and you give them a couple years, they'll be doing different things. It's a fundamental fact of organizations, right? And they said, this is dumb. We're just making paint. So they put an ERP system in place, and the ERP system allowed them to standardize their processes across the 13 regions. Well, they didn't stop there. That freed up some working capital, gave them some better information, and then they said, what else can we do? Well, the next thing they did, they put a call center in. Why did they do that? It's India. You do call centers, right? But also, it was a way to change the customer experience. Because now, instead of me having to give my orders to that sales guy, I'm pointing down to this thing you can't see. Instead of me taking orders to the sales guy and he sends it into the system, you call the call center, it takes half the time. You got standardized service, and it all goes in the system. What do we do about the sales guys? Well, make them work a little bit harder. We give them information with mobile, they become relationship people. Time to grow your customer, trying to find new customers in your region. What else can we do? Well, we got data. We can improve our service, delivery, other things. What else can we do? Advanced automation in the factories. How about delivering to the job site rather than making the contractors come to the store to pick things up? Kind of interesting. What else can we do? Well, in India, people are busy. They don't necessarily want to buy paint. They just want their wall painted. And so what do? They know a lot of contractors. They've got a good brand. Let's become the Uber of painting in India. It works. It's worked really well. In fact, it's worked so well that last time I talked to them, I asked, what are you doing now? They said, well, these contractors, we don't have to just paint your wall. We'll move your wall. They're becoming the Uber of home renovations in India. Amazing, right? But keep on going. Why are we staying in India? They're in 17 countries now around the world. So over the course of about 10, 15, 12 years, they went from making paint in 13 different ways in 13 regions to selling painting services, renovation services in 17 countries. It's pretty amazing for a boring company, isn't it? And if they can do it, you can do it. But throughout here, it's not just the digital. You notice, although I mentioned some digital things, the analytics, the mobile, what I was really talking about is changing customers, changing operations, and that's how they thought about it, and business models. The other thing is strong leadership, that every time they do something, they execute well, or else when they don't execute, they pull it back and then they try it again. But number 2, once they're done with something, they don't stop. They say, let's push this farther. What else can we do what else can we do? And that's a consistent story I hear over and over again in the best companies that are driving digital transformation. So I have a book on this. It's a really good book. It takes a little while to read, though. I can't do it in 30 minutes, right? So we had to boil it down to 5 things. So I'm going to give you the formula, 5 things. If you can do these well, you can drive digital transformation. Okay? What are they? Vision, projects, the platform, good governance, and the right culture. Okay? So in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to hit all these things, and we'll have a little bit of time for questions. And I've got a book, and we can certainly talk in the break, too. All right? Vision's one of those words. I don't like the idea of vision. I'm an engineer. It ought to just all be very clear. And the more I studied, the more I realized how important vision is. I used to think that, that companies would work really well if you just got rid of the people, that the people are the weak link, and if you could just automate everything. And then I got my doctorate in innovation, and I realized actually the people were kind of important, right? And also that leadership, there are methods to do leadership, right? It's just, they're not going to work as well as robots will, right? Of course, they do other things better. Vision is how you help people move forward in the right direction. It's how you help them change. So I used to hear the word vision come out of the provost or come out of the CEOs when I would be working, and my first response to a vision would be, okay, let me put my head down. Maybe this thing will go away, right? In fact, I was just talking to a guy at a big defense contractor yesterday. He said, our CEO is driving a new vision. I said, what do you think about it? He goes, well, this is the 25th one I've seen in my career, so it'll go away, right? But if you do the vision right, it's a completely different experience. Transformative vision. How can you be a different company because digital makes it possible? How can you do what Asian Paints did over and over again? And we see this in all kinds of different industries, right? Nike doesn't want to sell you shoes. They want to be part of your life. And if they're part of your life, if they're part of all your conversations around sports, they'll sell you more shoes, but they'll sell you a lot of other things too. So that vision makes it legitimate not only to make shoes, but to invest in the kinds of listening and conversations and events that help them become part of your life. I use the Nike running app, and they know all kinds of things about me because of that, including that my knee is injured, so I haven't run in 2 months. But they know these things, right? Other visions, Kaiser Permanente, really good health system in the US, in the West. They don't want to treat you well in their hospitals. They want to keep you healthy wherever you are. So if they can use mobile to keep you healthy, if they can use phone nurses to help you figure out what else you can do to stay healthy, if they can drive a van to a neighborhood and do clinics on a street corner, they'll do that. Because they want to keep people healthy. They don't want to treat you in a hospital. Very different vision. The vision makes it legitimate to do some of these other things. Okay? So one way to think about this is take some of the assumptions you've got that you've had forever and ask yourself, are they true anymore? So, Asian Paints was going to get into the home renovation business. Does that make sense for Asian Paints? Well, they think of it as a paint company. Well, maybe they don't. Maybe they think of it as a trusted brand that does for things in the house. I'll share a mine that's moving to mines without miners, right? What are the assumptions you've got inherent in your head that you need to really test? And one of the big ones is that our customers really value the human touch. What we've learned in e-commerce is that customers don't actually care about the human touch usually. They want personal service, but they don't care if it comes from a person. And in fact, in my case, if I never talked to a sales guy again, I would be happy, right? So what are some other ones? We've reached the limit of how far we can automate our processes. When your cars can drive themselves, when the robots can do some of the things they can do, when AI can do some of the stuff it can do, we are just starting a new revolution in what's possible to automate. Working as an integrated company, you can actually, the more you integrate, the better you can innovate, because you clean up some mess, some other things. By the way, if you're in a regulated industry, one of the ones I hear all the time is the regulators will never let us do that. And anybody in a regulated industry here? Pharma? Yeah. I hear this all the time from pharma companies. And as soon as you hear that thing, the next question you need to ask is, have you tested that assumption? Because the regulators I've been talking to in pharma and in finance are becoming much more willing to be part of experimentation if they're part of the story all the way along. Okay? So it's a great way to throw a roadblock in the middle of the way. So you can ask somebody, have you tested that assumption? Okay? All right, so we're going to create minds without miners. I'll tell you where the vision went there. We're going to be the center of the industrial internet at GE or at Schneider Electric. We're going to keep people healthy where they are, not treat them once they're sick. These are all big visions of where you're going. And the important thing about this is it teaches everybody that you're a different kind of company. What's important about this, though, is digital should be really turning you from caterpillars into butterflies. You're the same company. You now just have superpowers, right? You can fly, you can move faster, you can do all kinds of things you could never do. Unfortunately, when I talk to most senior executives and I ask about their vision, the first thing is, well, here's our vision, and it's not a clear vision, right? But the second thing that comes up is when they do have a clear vision, they're not talking about butterflies. They tend to be talking about fast caterpillars. And if you're in an industry where your competitors can fly, it doesn't matter how fast you crawl. So one of the things you want to do as leaders in your company is try to think, what is that vision that's butterflies? What is that vision that's truly different, as opposed to just being a little better than we were before? Okay? That's the kind of vision you want to drive through. Schindler, the elevator company, wants to be able to coordinate their services they give to you so they get you across a campus faster than you ever would before, right? If they could actually get into your calendar and know where you need to be on what time, they can tell you where to go, what escalators to ride, and everything else. That's how far they want to go. And by the way, the escalators will tell you when it's time to repair them and all those kinds of things. A different kind of vision where they're going. So that's vision. I could go on for 3 hours on vision. I was not a believer in vision until I started doing this research, and I'm just a true believer now. And so if you walk away with nothing else out of this talk, get that vision right. Really think about what that vision might be for you. Then there are projects. You've had an awful lot of talks on innovations. I won't spend a whole lot of time on projects. I will tell you that where it's easy to think about driving customer experience, meaning just focusing on revenue, where it's easy to think about operations as just digitizing your processes, and where it's easy to think about business models as creating the next version of iTunes or Uber or something like that. There's a lot more opportunity, and there's a lot more that you need to be doing. On customers, the better you understand your customers, the better you can drive top-line growth. The better you integrate, the better you can drive top-line growth. It's not just about marketing. And then on digitization, it's what do you do with the information, not just the fact you've digitized it. And on business models, there's a lot that you can do by digitally modifying your business models without completely trying to launch that next Uber of your industry. Your Uber, your industry might work. There's an awful lot of other things that are less risky and can pay off well. Okay? So customer experience, you understand that. You know where they've been going on this. I want to focus on operations, because I think operations we don't pay attention to enough. How many of you are B2B industries? How many of you are B2C industries? Okay, so B2C, you've heard a lot about the customer thing. You get what you can do there, where the personal concierge becomes your phone, where the company knows you as well as you know yourself. That's where we're going. In B2B and in B2C, operations is one of those ones the press never talks about because they never see it. And yet it can be the core of a lot of improvement all over the place. So what I want to focus on in the operations is, as you do that improvement, as you get to know your processes better, as you clean up your information, yes, you do become more efficient like Asian Paints did, but it opens up new opportunities just like Asian Paints did. So, for example, Digibank is an offering of this company called DBS Bank in Singapore. DBS Bank was so bad that the joke around Singapore was that DBS stands for damn bloody slow. Not the kind of thing you want associated with your brand, right? They put a challenge in to their employees. They said, let's save 100 million hours of waiting time for our customers this year. 100 million hours. We don't know how we're going to do that, so every employee, if you see anything that makes a customer wait, let us know about it, and we'll try to fix it. We're going to reduce queues in the lobby. We're going to do a lot that they can do through mobile. We're going to fix those reconciliation errors, right, so that the customers save time. Over the course of about 5 years, they got up there well over 250 million hours of wait time per year that they're saving. Just the employees fixing operational problems that made the customers happier. What else can they do, though? As they've done this, they also said, employees, let's save wait time for you, too. They're over 100 million hours of employee wait time that they've saved. And the employees waiting less means the processes are working better. Your employees are happier. It goes on. What else can they do? Their processes got so clean and so smooth that they are basically zero marginal cost. They had 2 points in the process where you really had to have people involved. There was enrolling clients, and there was customer service. They put chatbots for customer service, and in India, enrolling clients, there's a digital identity that's available. They don't need people in the process anymore. They created this thing here called DigiBank in India, used it with some partners and some other things. This is such an efficient process that they say if you give them 500 rupees, they can make money on you. Making banking available to somebody whose entire wealth is 500 rupees is a huge opportunity in India, and it's win-win. These people now have banking, and the bank can still make money on them because their operations open up this new opportunity for business models. Another one here, CDM Smith, they make big hydroelectric dams and other things. For the designers, they set it up so HoloLens for the designers so they can see in 3D what they're designing. And that's kind of cool. But one of the engineers said, I'm the expert in something. I can't remember what it was. And I have to fly all over the world for these 2-hour meetings. I'll lose 3 days for a 2-hour meeting. That's kind of dumb. Why don't I just put on the goggles where I am, you put on the goggles where you are, and we'll meet right inside the hydroelectric dam that we're designing, and we can look around. They made that happen, and the engineers can collaborate like they could never collaborate before. But they didn't stop there. What else can they do? Well, they now can sit down next to their customers. They all put the goggles on, and they work together. And what used to be a 2-month design cycle, I give you my blueprints, you review them for a month, give them back, I take a month and send you a new set of blueprints, is now 5 minutes. Revolutionize the customer experience also leads to happier customers, better design processes, and more efficient at the same time. That's what I mean about the operations enabling more and more things. If you just keep saying, what else can we do? What else can we do? Okay. And then business models also. I told you, yeah, you can try to be the Uber of your industry. That's fine, you'll fail. And why do I know that? Because 99 out of 100 times, these new giant business models do fail. You might get lucky, but look at some other things at the same time. If you get lucky, so I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying don't do it as your only thing, and be careful as you do that. What else can you do right away? There are all kinds of low-hanging fruit that involves information in different ways. Can you carve up your bundle sizes? People went to Tokyo Marine and said, my sister's coming to town, and I love my sister, but she's a terrible driver. Can I just have 3 days of insurance for her on my car? And Tokyo Marine would say, no, that's stupid. We sell only by the year. Until somebody in Tokyo Marine said, actually, we could sell by the day. Add a rider onto the policy. You've got phone apps that can look at it. Now we can make that happen when it couldn't happen before. They'll also sell you a week of skiing insurance, a week of accident insurance within 10 miles of the skiing hill, if you want it that way. Because it's possible now. We used to reject those stupid questions, now we're not. Getting data to the right place at the right time, the check engine light goes on your car, what do? Well, you keep driving and you worry about it, or you take it to the dealer and they basically charge you a whole lot of money to do something that you didn't need to do yet, right? And sometimes, sometimes you got to be there. Daimler Trucks, what do? Basically, they put a cell phone on the engine. So your check engine light goes on, you call Daimler Daimler calls your engine. And Daimler responds to you with one of two answers. They either say, hey, no problem, let's just schedule some time to change that filter whenever it's good for you. Or the other thing they say is, you know, your engine's about to blow up, but 10 miles down the road, we got a car waiting, we got a service station waiting for you, and you're going to be in and out in 2 hours. What did they do? They took that information off the engine, they got it to the people that could make the decisions, and they got back to you. It's just moving information. How many times in your industry, in your company, do you have information in one place that belongs in another place? And if you could just get it there, you could make better decisions. And then the analytics space, the underwriting that's happening in insurance, in fintech and other things, if you can bring these streams of data in, you can make better decisions, and you and your customers are both happier in that process. So don't ignore this low-hanging fruit while you're going after the big home run things too. This is stuff's just waiting around for you to do it. And if you're not doing it, then your competitors are. Okay? So that was projects. We got 3 more, but luckily these 3 go pretty fast. Okay? Platform. The platform is your processes, your technology, all the things that keep your company running, the legacy stuff. The best picture I could find, I looked all over the place, and I finally found the perfect picture for the platform in most companies. You ready? Does that kind of look like your processes and your systems in your company? Right? So if you do, you're not alone, but if you do, it's really hard to innovate on that. Because it's hard to know where the processes come and go. It's hard to know if you change something here, is anything going to change over there? So what I will tell you to continue the pasta analogy is turn your spaghetti into lasagna. From these tangled strands to nice layers of functionality, right? And then take one more step, turn that lasagna into ravioli. Little modules that you can move around and connect together, okay? If you don't get what I'm saying, ask your technology people. And the other thing, the reason I say ask your technology people is I heard over and over again, digital is fast, but our IT people are really slow. So we have to do digital without our IT people in the room. Bad, bad idea. The masters we studied all found ways for digital and IT and business to work together. That often meant a lot of change on the IT side, but it also meant a lot of change on the business side. Finding ways to work together, to have them be part of the conversation. I have an entire book on this. My previous book is on how to do this right, so it's called The Real Business of IT, and I can tell you more about how to make that work. Okay? 2 more. Governance. How many say governance, that's a dirty word in your company? Nobody hates their governance process? Everybody hates their governance process, unless you've got a really good company. Governance is often a synonym for bureaucracy, right? It's often a synonym for paperwork, arguing, and slowness, and it doesn't have to be that way. If the vision is about setting a direction, and you're engaging and doing projects, and that's the motor, that's the accelerator pedal to move you forward, you need a steering wheel, and that's what governance is. So governance doesn't need to be about saying no. Governance needs to be about getting the right levels of sharing and coordination. So that if you do something and you do something that should build on him, you actually build on it. And if you two do things that are similar, we're not reinventing the wheel. That's what we're talking about with governance, not getting in the way, but helping to discover opportunities, helping to learn from there. So we tend to see a person in charge of digital at the top. They often have some shared resources. They got AI resources or other things, right? And then each unit in a large company will have their own head of digital and their own efforts going on here. And the idea is that this person here coordinates with those folks, and the enterprise priorities come down here, the local priorities go up there. And there's a conversation going on there that helps them go across too. That's how governance works. And we got a whole chapter in the book on it. But it's an important topic. It's one that we're not paying enough attention to yet. So, we can do a little more research in that area. And now I just want to go to the very last one, culture. So I've been studying for the last couple of years, how do how do traditional companies get the culture of the traditional companies? So if you think about, when you listen to the Amazons, the Googles, and all the stories about how to get Silicon Valley culture, you see a lot of things that look like this. And I will tell you that these are right, but the formulas you hear out there is just plop these in your organization and it's going to be right. Unfortunately, if you try to copy the processes of Amazon without being able to have the hiring practices and the compensation practices of Amazon, it's just not going to work. And if you are not willing to fire people when they're not useful anymore and hire their replacements, it's not going to work. But we have a new article coming out in June on how to be digital enough. And so you can come back in June, I'll tell you more about how to do that, right? But let me tell you the one thing you can do to start. It's something I've said probably half a dozen times just in this last half hour. Where do you start with digital culture? You want to have your employees to be dissatisfied. And what do I mean by that? You want your employees to be satisfied, but you want them constantly saying, what else can we do? You want them dissatisfied with the status quo so they can keep pushing it forward again and again, saying the next thing. So if you can get your employees asking this, you're well along the way to creating the right culture. And then you can read my article in June, and we'll have more to talk about on there. Okay? So that was a really fast half hour. Klaus is about to stand up and say, George, stop, right? Do we have time for questions or not?
We have time for questions, absolutely, yes.
Okay. So anybody have a question? I can't see because of the lights, so...
There's a couple of them which actually will put them pigeonhole, and they're right in front of you.
Oh, who has a question?
Here.
Where? Oh, they come up this way. So I never actually need to talk to a person then, right?
We actually use digital technology.
Oh, how about that? Okay. If a company does B2B, there are two customers. One's the real customer, the other is the consumer. For B2B, how do you do the digital transformation? Number one, focus on operations because there's usually a tremendous opportunity there. Also in your B2B, your customers, there are integration opportunities often that you can use. You can make that customer's job more easy and become kind of a preferred supplier. The next thing to think about is the B to B to C approach. One way to do it is what Asian Paints did, create a consumer service that you want to buy. But the other way is find ways to understand those customers better, even though you don't own those customers. So what the major car brands are doing now to understand your telemetry, to tie you in with their apps and these other things, are a way to go not around the dealers, but to connect with customers even though the dealers are in the loop. And we're seeing more and more of this B to B to C kind of model in B2B happening. Okay. So another question? Do you reckon having a chief digital officer, or can it be a whole tool in the hands of the CTO who knows how to apply and demonstrate value? Yeah, you got a CTO that knows how to apply and demonstrate value. That's great. Listen, this can be run by anybody, but somebody needs to be running it. These are major, if you're driving a major transformation without a leader, that transformation will fail. So you can bring in an external CDO, you can promote an internal CDO, your chief information officer, your CTO can do it, your head of marketing, your head of operations, anybody can do it, but just make sure somebody's doing it. Huh? If organizations are slow to adopt technology, what's the best way to speed the transformation? I just gave you 5 points, just follow those 5 points. Okay? Next question. How does one spread innovation within an organization from integration group through the, oh man, is bottom-up innovation possible? 2 questions there. Yes, if you run your innovation groups well, there are ways to make this work. Catch me in the sidelines, I'll tell you how to do that well. It's about a 15-minute discussion. So we can also do that at a separate lecture sometime. But the other one that was in there was something about how do you get the innovations to happen across. That's where governance comes in. Hey, you're starting this. Do you know that unit already did that? Maybe you can learn from working with them. Okay? How did you measure digital? We did it through surveys. First time we did it through interviews to understand the phenomenon, and then we tested it with surveys. We have a diagnostic instrument. That diagnostic instrument put companies in certain quadrants, and then we compared companies in those quadrants to the companies in other quadrants. Okay? So that's it for the questions. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here at 9 in the morning, which is kind of nice. And if you want to talk about this stuff, if you want to talk about what we're doing with workforce, if you want to talk about what we're doing with innovation groups, just catch me in the hallway and we can talk about it, okay?
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dirk.